The sound of the drum haunts me. Its rhythm is like nothing I've ever heard before, deep, echoing, and wrong. It wasn't just a sound, it was a feeling, like something crawling under my skin. I shouldn't have been there. No one should. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, especially when it leads you to the forbidden. It happened in my village, deep in the heart of Africa. We were told never to go near the old baobab tree at the edge of the forest. The elders said it was cursed, that something evil lived there. But kids don't listen, do they? One night, during the full moon, my friends and I decided to see for ourselves. We thought it was just a story to scare us. We were wrong. The elders always said, when the moon is full, the drum calls, but only the dead can answer. I didn't understand what it meant until that night. My grandmother was the one who told me the story of the drum. She said it belonged to a powerful witch doctor who lived centuries ago. He used it to summon spirits, but one day, the spirits turned on him. They took his soul and left the drum behind, cursed. If you hear the drum, she warned, run. Don't look back. Don't stop. Just run. I laughed it off back then. But now, I wish I had listened. The forest was alive that night. The wind whispered through the trees, and the shadows seemed to move on their own. My friends and I carried flashlights, but the light felt weak, like it was being swallowed by the darkness. We joked and laughed to hide our fear, but the closer we got to the baobab tree, the quieter we became. When we finally reached the tree, it was bigger than I remembered. Its branches twisted like giant arms, and its trunk was covered in strange carvings. At its base was a small opening, just big enough for a person to crawl through. That's where we found it, the drum. The drum was old, so old that the wood was cracked and the skin stretched over it was brittle. But what scared me the most were the symbols carved into it. They looked like eyes, watching us. My friend, Kofi, reached out to touch it. Don't! I shouted, but it was too late. The moment his fingers brushed the drum, the air changed. It got colder, heavier. And then, we heard it, the first beat. The sound was low and deep, like thunder rolling in the distance. But it wasn't coming from the drum. It was coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. My heart raced, and my legs felt like they were rooted to the ground. We need to go, I said, but no one moved. We were frozen, listening. The second beat came, louder this time. And then the third. With each beat, the ground seemed to shake, and the air grew colder. That's when we saw them, shadows, moving in the trees. They weren't human. The shadows were tall and thin, with long arms that reached the ground. They didn't have faces, just empty spaces where eyes should be. They moved slowly, swaying with the rhythm of the drum. My friends and I finally found our legs and ran, but the shadows followed. I could hear them behind us, their footsteps silent but their presence heavy. The drum kept beating, faster now, like a heartbeat. I didn't look back. I couldn't. But I could feel them getting closer. We ran through the forest, branches scratching our faces and roots tripping us. The drum was louder now, echoing in my head. I could hear my friends screaming, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. When we finally reached the village, I turned around. My friends were there, but something was wrong. Their eyes were blank, and their faces were pale. They didn't speak. They just stood there, staring at me. The next morning, my friends were gone. No one in the village would talk about it. The elders just shook their heads and said, "The drum has taken them." I wanted to tell someone what happened, but I couldn't. The words wouldn't come out. That night, I heard the drum again. It was faint, but it was there. And I knew it was calling for me. Days turned into weeks, and the drum's sound never left me. It was always there, in the back of my mind, beating slowly. I started seeing things, shadows in the corner of my eye, figures standing in the distance. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I was losing myself. One night, I decided to go back to the baobab tree. I didn't know why. Maybe I thought I could break the curse. Or maybe the drum was controlling me. The forest was silent as I walked to the baobab tree. The drum's beat grew louder with every step. When I reached the tree, the drum was there, waiting for me. The symbols on it seemed to glow in the moonlight. I reached out to touch it, and the moment I did, the world went black. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the forest anymore. I was in a village, but it wasn't mine. The houses were made of mud and straw, and the people wore clothes I didn't recognize. They were dancing around the fire, and in the center was the drum. A man stood next to it, his face painted with white lines. He was the witch doctor. He looked at me, and his eyes were empty, like the shadows. The witch doctor spoke, but his voice wasn't his own. It was deep and guttural, like the drum. "You have awakened the curse," he said. "Now you must pay the price." I tried to run, but my body wouldn't move. The drum started beating again, and the villagers turned to look at me. Their eyes were empty too. The witch doctor pointed to the drum. "You must play it," he said, "or you will join the others." I didn't want to, but I had no choice. I picked up the drumsticks and hit the drum. The sound was deafening, and the ground shook. The villagers started chanting, and the shadows appeared again. The shadows surrounded me, their empty eyes staring into my soul. I could feel their cold breath on my skin. The drum kept beating, and the shadows started to dance. I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. My hands moved on their own, hitting the drum over and over. The witch doctor smiled, and I knew I was lost. Just as I thought it was over, I heard a voice. It was my grandmother's. "Fight it," she said. "You are stronger than the curse." I closed my eyes and focused on her voice. The drum's beat grew quieter, and the shadows started to fade. When I opened my eyes, I was back at the baobab tree. I ran back to the village, but no one believed me. They said I was crazy, that the drum was just a story. But I knew the truth. The curse was real, and it wasn't over. Every night, I dream of the drum. It's always the same, the witch doctor, the shadows, and the empty eyes. I wake up screaming, but no one hears me. One night, I saw them again, the shadows. They were standing outside my window, watching me. I closed my eyes and prayed they would go away, but they didn't. I know the drum is calling me back. I can hear it, even now. It's only a matter of time before I answer. I don't know what will happen when I go back. Maybe I'll break the curse. Maybe I'll join the others. But one thing is certain, the drum will never stop. I started asking questions about the drum, but the elders shut me down every time. Some things are better left buried, they said. But I couldn't let it go. I needed to know why the drum was cursed and why it chose me. One night, I found an old book in my grandmother's hut. It was filled with drawings of the drum and the witch doctor. There were also names of people from our village who had disappeared over the years. My friends' names were there too. The book was written in a language I didn't understand, but the pictures told a story. The witch doctor had made a deal with the spirits to protect the village, but the price was too high. He had to sacrifice people to keep the drum's power alive. I realized then that the drum wasn't just cursed, it was a weapon. and the village had been using it for centuries. I went to the elders with the book. At first, they denied everything, but when I showed them the names, they broke down. We had no choice, they said. The drum protects us from worse things. I didn't believe them. How could they sacrifice their own people? The elders told me about the spirits that lived in the forest. They were ancient and hungry, and the only way to keep them at bay was to feed them. The drum was the key. It called the spirits and gave them what they wanted. But the drum was also a curse. Once it chose someone, it wouldn't let go. I decided to destroy the drum. I didn't care about the consequences. I couldn't let it take anyone else. The elders tried to stop me. If you destroy the drum, the spirits will come for us all, they said. But I didn't listen. I went back to the baobab tree, but this time, I wasn't alone. My grandmother came with me. She said she couldn't let me face the curse alone. When we reached the tree, the drum was there, waiting. The symbols on it glowed brighter than ever. My grandmother started chanting in a language I didn't understand. She told me to stay back, but I couldn't. I had to see this through. The drum started beating on its own, and the shadows appeared again. They were angrier this time, their movements sharper, more violent. My grandmother fought the shadows with her words, but it wasn't enough. They were too strong. I grabbed the drumsticks and hit the drum, hoping to distract them. The sound was deafening, and the shadows turned to me. I could feel their anger, their hunger. My grandmother stepped in front of me. "Take me instead," she said to the shadows. "Leave my grandchild alone." The shadows hesitated, then surrounded her. I tried to pull her back, but it was too late. As my grandmother disappeared into the shadows, the drum cracked. The sound stopped, and the shadows faded. The curse was broken, but the cost was too high. I returned to the village, but it wasn't the same. The elders avoided me, and the villagers whispered behind my back. I had saved them, but they didn't see it that way. The drum was gone, but the forest was still dangerous. The spirits were angry, and they blamed me for breaking the curse. Strange things started happening in the village. Crops withered, animals disappeared, and people fell ill. The elders said it was the spirits' revenge. The elders decided to make a new drum. They said it was the only way to protect the village. I tried to stop them, but they wouldn't listen. I realized then that the curse would never end. The drum was a part of the village, and the village was a part of the drum. I left the village. I couldn't stay and watch the cycle continue. But the drum sound followed me, a constant reminder of what I had lost. I tried to start over, but the drum's curse haunted me. I saw shadows everywhere, and the sound never left me. One night, I heard the drum again. It was calling me back. I knew I had to face it one last time. I went back to the village, but it was empty. The drum was there, waiting. The symbols glowed brighter than ever. I picked up the drumsticks and hit the drum. The sound was deafening, and the shadows appeared again. This time, I didn't run. I faced them, and the curse finally ended. But the drum sound will never leave me. It's a part of me now, and it always will be. The story highlights the importance of respecting traditions, heeding wisdom from elders, and understanding that some mysteries are better left untouched. It serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of tampering with forces we do not fully understand and the heavy price that can come from disregarding the lessons of the past. Forbidden Drum is a powerful and timeless one. Curiosity and disobedience, especially in the face of ancient warnings, can lead to irreversible consequences. Some boundaries exist for a reason, and ignoring them can unleash forces beyond our control. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please comment on what you learned. Thank you. Please subscribe for more.